Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. So I want to start today with a question, and I actually need you to sit with this one instead of just letting it pass through like background noise while you're folding laundry or driving or just somewhere distracted. Because this question, when I finally asked it, honestly changed everything about how I built. Not just the business, but literally everything. And so here it is. Are you building toward the life you actually want, or are you building away from the one you're afraid of? Because the truth is, those two things can look identical from the outside. Same hours, same effort, same schedule, same routine, showing up every single week the same. But the energy underneath them is completely different. The foundation is completely different. And eventually, if you keep going long enough, the results, yet they feel the same, are completely different too. And most of us, if we're really willing to be honest about it, have spent a lot of years doing the second while also telling ourselves it was the first. I know I did. I wrote a book called Chasing Perfection, a journey to healing, fitness, and self-love. And when I wrote it, I was deep in the work of healing from all the ways I had been trying to earn my worth through my body, through my discipline, through my performance, through my efforts, through everything. And I thought if I could just fix myself enough, heal enough, prove enough, that I would finally feel whole, that I would finally feel like I was enough. And what I didn't expect was that afterward, when I stopped chasing perfection, I started chasing success. And I didn't even know that this was happening because the truth was it was trading one pattern, one hustle for another. It's the same wound, different reward. Same pressure, different costume. I replaced impossible body goals with impossible business goals. I replaced self-loathing with self-proving. And I told myself that this was just what it takes. This is what building looks like. This is the work. The outcomes will always feel unattainable until you start doing the inner work to realize that there's a different blueprint and a different set of rules specifically for you. And so here's what I know now after looking back and seeing all of this is that perfection and success are often two sides of the same lie. That your worth is something you have to earn or achieve. That if you can just get to the next milestone, hit the next number, launch the next new offer, reach the next level, gain more followers, hit the number on the scale, whatever that goal is, your next, your more, then you'll feel it. Then it'll be enough. Then you can exhale. But what if then never happens and we never catch what we've been chasing after? And so when we're chasing, eventually, when is enough? And that's the vicious cycle of burnout because you can only sustain for so long. And I'm willing to bet that if you're listening, you have set some lofty, unattainable goals. But in your heart of hearts, you know that there's something out there for you, that there's something more for you. And I think somewhere deep down, you already know this because you've been there. You've hit things you thought would make you feel good. You did things that you thought would pan out. And you built things that you were proud of and still feel like there's something off. And I'm not talking about the part of not working hard enough or perhaps that you lacked faith or vision, because you can have all of those components, but it's because the whole thing was sitting on the wrong foundation, the wrong structure. And this is what I'm talking about, what we build our life upon. And I had to learn this from the fitness days. I was trying to follow somebody else's workout program, someone else's diet, someone else's routine. And I kept wondering why my body was not responding, why I wasn't getting the output for the input. Why was that misaligned? And when I started to deconstruct the entire model, and that's again where we come back to building blocks of setting a foundation, building the foundation to which we build our life, our business, and our relationships upon. And so here's where that question comes in. And here's where I want to get really practical with you, because again, this isn't just philosophy or some ideology, but it's really the decision and the framework that actually works. And perhaps it's the permission slip you've needed to give yourself in order to change, right? Because something is not working. Because we all know that perfection doesn't exist. And so before I build anything or say yes to any opportunity, I ask, is this moving me toward the life I actually want? Or is it moving me away from something that I'm afraid of? And the reason that distinction matters so much is you have to ask yourself, when you're building from fear, you can never build enough. And that goal line constantly keeps moving. And the proof is never sufficient. You can be the most consistent, disciplined, faith-filled woman in the entire room and still feel like it's not working. Because the engine underneath the whole thing is running on the wrong fuel. You have to know what you're building toward. And I'm not talking about the future fantasy version or the life that you wish to escape from. And it's not the someday life when everything is figured out and the business is where you want it to be. I'm talking about the actual life, the one you're currently living right now, with everything it contains, the Hot Mess Express. What does that life need to feel like for you to experience freedom? What does it need in order for you to feel like yourself inside of it? So why haven't we felt this sense of freedom, this contentment, this happiness, this peace, this thing that we're hoping, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Because we have to ask ourselves again that question. Are we moving toward the life that we actually want? Or are we moving away from something that we're afraid of? That one hit me because I thought I was building something that I wanted. But it was really a chase to outrun what I was most afraid of. And so for me, that answer lies in 5 things. And I call them my 5 F's. And at the end of my book, In Chasing Perfection, I have a whole chapter on this and how life comes full circle. As I was revisiting chapters from my book, and I said, oh my gosh, there it is. It's right here. I had known this, but yet again, I too got lost. I got lost on the path, lost in the mix, lost along the way. But I came back to them, and these are the 5 F's that came out of doing that inner work that I was writing about in Chasing Perfection. And that's where everything that came after it was supposed to be the foundation. But like I said, I started following other people's models, other people's blueprints. And when we follow others, we get lost. And so those 5 for me now are concrete, and they're the foundation to which I build everything upon. And I encourage you to do the same here. Put them on your vision board. Put that locked, loaded on your wall somewhere forefront so you will never forget this. But for me, the 5 F's are faith, family, fitness, fulfillment, and freedom. Those 5 things are my filter. Those are my 5 pillars. That's what I'm building on and toward. And whenever I'm making a decision about what to create or take on or say yes to, I come back to the same question. Does this serve the life of those 5 things and point to it, or does it pull me away from it? Because here's what I've learned the hard way about chasing someone else's version of success. And listen, the online business world will give you a new version of success to chase every single week if you let it. And if we're not discerning what is and isn't for you, you'll be tempted to run off with somebody else's version and get lost. So be cautious, be mindful, be aware that someone else's revenue number might not be yours. Someone else's audience size might not be realistic for you. Someone else's launch strategy or business plan or blueprint might not fit for you, might not be the best model. Someone else's morning routine, their offer stacks, their whatever this is, that might not be for you because their definition of what freedom looks like is unique for them. And so when we use those filters and say, oh, I have to versus I get to get a glimpse of other people's version of freedom. So I'm not saying that any of this is bad information. Again, we have to have clarity and use discernment to filter what is and isn't for you. So some of it, to be honest, it is useful. Genuinely, it's very useful. And in fact, it can be useful for you knowing what not to do, right? Everything has a purpose, but you have to discern what is for you. And so in the moment, when you start building somebody else's vision of the destination instead of your own, that's where you've lost the thread. That's where you've lost the momentum and everything that you've been weaving together. Because everything about how you build, what you create, what you charge, how you show up, how you rest, what you say no to, it has to be calibrated for your life, your values, your calling. And this isn't just a cookie cutter template. This is unique to you, your body, your mind, your spirit. How are you showing up in your relationships, in your life, and in your business? How are you serving others? And how is what you created and built serving you? And that's where the inner work of from chasing perfection becomes the foundation for everything I call building with discernment. The identity work, the values work, the belief work. That's not just soft stuff you do because that's really where the real work starts, to be honest with you. It is the real work. Because you can't build a freedom-based business or a freedom-based lifestyle from a self that hasn't done the work to know what freedom actually feels like or means to you. Because the truth is you'll keep building someone else's version of it and then wondering why it never lands the way you thought it would. Why do you feel resentment, discontentment? Why do you feel bitterness towards the things that you've built and you've prayed about and prayed for, right? Because you might have received those blessings, but you're not stewarding them in a way that is serving your God-given calling. So let me give you 3 places to apply this question starting today. The first one is your offers. Before you create anything new, before you add another product or another service or another freebie to your offer stack, and honestly, I'm creating this. This is because I genuinely believe it serves the person. This is who I'm trying to help. This is who I'm creating the content for. This is why I'm creating it. It's because I'm afraid what I already have. So let me give you 3 places to apply this question starting today. The first is in your business. It's your offers. Before you create anything new, before you add another product, another service, or another freebie to your offer stack, ask honestly, am I creating this because I genuinely believe it serves the person I'm trying to help? An offer built from genuine service has a completely different energy from one that was built from fear. And that's the current thing that isn't converting. People feel that difference. even before you even name it, even before they claim it. They know. They know. And the second is your content. There's a version of showing up consistently that comes from wanting to be in real conversation with your audience, wanting to share something useful, wanting to be a genuine presence in their week. And then there's a version that comes from fear of falling behind. Fear, if you stop showing up for even one day, the whole thing will unravel and you have lost your momentum. That is fear speaking, because none of that is true. The content looks the same from the outside, but if you sit with the question, is this coming from something real or is it coming from fear? Then you already know the answer. And the ones that come from something real are always the ones that land. And so the third is your yes. Every time someone brings you an opportunity, a collaboration, a new direction, a shiny new thing that looks like growth or cha-ching, money in your bank account, success, whatever that is, before you answer, ask, would I say yes to this if I wasn't missing out? If I wasn't afraid of being in a lack place or scarcity or even in a survival mode? Would I say yes if I wasn't afraid of what they'd think if I said no? Would I say yes if the only thing guiding this decision was what I actually want to build? If the honest answer is no, then you already have your answer. It's that gut check. You already know before you even have to ask. Even if the logical part of your brain can construct a really compelling case for saying yes, if the yes is coming from fear rather than genuine alignment, it will cost you more than it gives you. What changes when you start applying this consistently is that everything gets simpler. Everything gets quieter. The noise, the distractions, the overwhelm, the overstimulation, all that takes a back seat. And I'm not saying because you stripped away everything overnight, though you might have had to remove a lot, to be honest with you, but it's because you got clear, you got focused, and you got something very specific that you're working on and towards. And that's the life defined by your own version of the 5 F's. Create a version for you. And that's your own values, your own version of what freedom looks like. You develop a very fast filter for what belongs and what doesn't. The decisions that used to take weeks of overthinking now take moments. Because I know what I'm building toward. And I can feel pretty quickly whether something's moving me toward it or away from it. Again, because I got hyper focused, crystal clear. I knew the intentions and I knew what was for me. So that's not a strategy skill. That is discernment. And discernment is a skill. And discernment comes from the inner work, the inner knowing. The same inner work that chasing perfection was always pointing toward. You were just never healing your relationship with your body. You were healing your relationship with yourself. The same as you're not healing the relationship with others or your love-hate with your business. But it's essentially coming back home to the relationship you have with you. And that's the foundation everything else gets built on. In Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. I used to read that as a comfort verse and be like, oh, that was nice. But the more I sat with that, and the more I've intentionally built my foundation, or should I say rebuilt, I learned to understand now, it's that this leaning not on your own understanding means being willing to examine the understanding. It's the whole understanding. because you've been operating from and asking whether or not it's actually yours, or whether it was handed to you by fear or by culture or society or fed to you through the algorithms or someone else's ideas of what success is supposed to look like. And that's the challenge. I want you to ask yourself, what is success for you in this season? Because that will change as you change. And so are you trying to change it or create this version of success based off of old patterns, old blueprints, old wiring, old programming? Perhaps it was old values or an old belief of your own identity, right? So we have to update that. And the deeper and closer you go in your faith in the walk with the Lord, things become more refined. And that's what I'm encouraging you today, is to redefine, what does success mean to you? And so that path gets straight when you're willing to be honest about which direction you've been walking. And this question, am I building towards something or away from something, is one of the most honest things you can ask yourself. So before you open another strategy doc or plan another launch or consider rebuilding and repivoting and rebranding and doing all the businessy things on top of creating new offers, just sit with it and ask. Apply it to your current business. Apply it to your current capacity. And then build the life first. The real one. Not the one that was back then. We're rebuilding from a solid foundation, new perspective. Again, build the life first. The real life. The one you're living right now. Not the someday version. And then build the business around that life. That's the order. That's always been the order. And when you finally build from that place, the whole thing changes. That's the beauty of building a faith-based business aligned with who you are and who He has called and created you to be. So if this episode resonates with you and you want to keep this conversation going, join me every Thursday morning for the Confident Woman Weekly. It's my newsletter. It goes out every Thursday, and we go deeper into everything we talk about on this podcast. And if you're interested, click the link in the show notes below and get on the list, and I'll see you there in your inbox every Thursday. So until next week, take care and God bless. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.